Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at ihatecritics.net. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handles on those last two are Critics Pod. There you can participate in our top fives, watch trailers, read reviews. Sean sends us news on Twitter a lot that we ignore.
Dicks.
I don't get on Twitter much, as much as I should. But yeah, we interact on Facebook more than anywhere else, but maybe if you draw us to Twitter, we'll go there more.
I'm very often and very active on Twitter. If anybody wants to, it's at Critic Sean, at Critic SEAN.
I'm at BZERULL, but I'm not going to respond to you.
Please, someone send a message to mine. JAdams514, I think. I don't remember. Somebody pay attention to me.
I got replies this week from Best Friends Movie talking about my review last week, so I'm very happy about Twitter.
There's the 1 degree.
Get them on the show.
Yes.
How many followers he got? No. Not going to play that game. Maybe I will. My computer's all messed up. Anyway, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and we're already on Spotify, which I thought was pretty cool. There you can listen to the shows no matter where you listen to us, so please go to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast or Apple Podcasts, and rate and review the show. We will read your review on the air, and it helps us move up the charts. And we're on Spotify, and Spotify is really big. So enjoy us there, too, if you want. What else am I forgetting? Patreon. ihatecritics.net/Patreon. That's the best way to support the podcast. We're working on a book, working on video. We're not just saying that. That's how we grow, and we want to thank all the subscribers we do have because they've really helped us out. We've gotten to go to more movies. I feel like the show's gotten better since then as well, so thank you for that. If you want to be a supporter, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. Let's just jump right into it. Trailers this week. The House with Clocks in Its Walls.
Yeah, this isn't bad. I mean, especially for an Eli Roth trailer, it's certainly not bad.
Whose name is nowhere near the trailer.
Which is probably the best thing about it. Kate Blanchett, Jack Black, and I for a little bit as I was watching this trailer, I kept thinking, is this the sequel to Goosebumps? Like it felt like
feel like
because
that.
There's, I mean, the same premise, right? A kid moving. Yeah. So I thought for a moment this was the sequel to Goosebumps, and then it takes a while to shake that.
Yeah, I never really felt that, but now when you say it, I can see why you would have.
Because Jack Black's, I mean, he's essentially playing seemingly the same character.
Right.
But then Jack Black doesn't necessarily have a lot of range either.
Yeah, I thought it was a slightly, like, really if this was to be done properly, like Guillermo del Toro would have made it kind of movie. That's kind of how I looked at it. But
I agree with you in that it seemed like that kind of material, but with somebody else as a director. Now, if it hadn't been for you telling us that Eli Roth had made the I would, of course, have had no idea. He's not. They don't show credits at the end or anything like that, so you don't know unless you go search for it. I am amazed that this is an Eli Roth movie already. How Kate Blanchett is now associated with Eli Roth. Okay, that's something to me. I think that he is legitimately trying to make something good or interesting. The trailer's actually kind of cool. I liked the pacing of it, in which they've got the clocks kind of lining up with the pace of the trailer. And yes, the Goosebumps vibe is there, but after the trailer, I leaned over and asked my son, "Is this a book or something? Have you read this?" Because it looked like something he would have been familiar with, and it might be a book. I don't know, but the trailer itself, I'm interested enough in who's involved with this to say, yes, I will see it for sure in the theater, just to see what happens. I want to know if this is going to end up being like trick you into getting to the theater, and then is a PG-13 movie push it to the absolute limit because it's Eli, you know? I'm so intrigued.
I think we're giving a little bit too much credit there. Death Wish, he doesn't come close to pushing it to any limit.
Nope.
That said, it's probably his best directorial effort. He must be doing something right somewhere. His main problem for me has been acting. Not him, but the actors. He does not direct his actors well. But he's never had money, you know, so he's always having to take, all right, that's good enough, move on. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering now that he's, you know, doing movies that he didn't write and with a little bit bigger budget, maybe we'll see a better director out of it. I mean, you got Kate Blanchett in the movie. I'm curious how this is going to go. If nothing else, I want to know how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the A24 trailer First Reformed.
I was not able to find this one.
I did watch it, and because it's A24, that tells us a lot of what we need to know already. And the little tagline on there on the film that says the role that Ethan Hawke was born to play. What does that mean? To be honest, Ethan Hawke, for as good as he has been in a number of films, also doesn't strike me as a guy that would ever have a statement like that for him. What does that mean? This is a film about something odd happening with a pastor's faith, and I didn't know if there was something supernatural linked to it at first. I didn't know if they were talking about violence and culture or not at some point. I don't know where the film is going, but it certainly was at least a well done enough trailer, knowing the principles involved with distribution. That always gets me a little excited that I'll see something amazing. Yeah,
they were kind of comparing it to Taxi Driver, surprise. But because Paul Schrader wrote that, he's made good movies. He's made the second worst movie of all time, maybe third. Knock knock. It's like 2 trailers this week are from Eli Roth and Paul Schrader. 2 of the 3 worst movies I've ever seen. But Ethan Hawke is rarely bad or in something that bad. It looked fascinating in A24 for the most part. At the very least, they go all out. They pick movies that good or bad. They're something different. So I'm on board. I want to see it. Mm-hmm. Basically, it'll be like if it's doesn't come here and then come December, it's been sitting on video and Sean lets us watch it at his house. That'll be like, okay, this is Ghost Story or whatever.
Oh, you reminded me of that.
Good time, whatever that was. And then this wasn't even really a trailer, but just worthy of talking about, I guess. See your level of excitement or not excitement. The Halloween teaser, which is essentially just the theme song and a pumpkin.
I would be more excited about this if this were a remake of Halloween 3. If this were a Halloween 3 remake, I'd be all in. If it were the masks and no Michael Myers, give it to me. But if it's Michael Myers again, fuck this movie. I don't need it. We don't need to see Michael Myers. There's no variation. There's nothing new you can do with this. It's been done so many times. What possible new thing could you draw to doing Michael Myers all over again?
The only thing that they haven't done is brought John Carpenter back to the fold and Jamie Lee Curtis back to the fold and told something of a sequel in the present day. And I know she was back for H2O or whatever. And
isn't she dead? I thought they killed her.
I thought she was too, but
this movie is erasing all the movies except for the first one. It's a sequel to the first one.
So they're just going to
wait a minute here. Halloween 2 she's in that one, isn't she?
This is a direct sequel to the first Halloween.
That makes me angry.
Why? They've been doing that with the Halloween movies since.
What I mean is, okay.
I don't care about the minutia of the other Halloweens. That doesn't bother me. Go ahead, Josh.
No, what I'm thinking of is like if they made an Alien movie. They were talking about the Neil Blomkamp film erasing Alien 3 and 4. And I'm like, no. You've got to set this at a time that exists after the films that we've already invested a ton of time in. It's one thing if you erase history and like certain characters that weren't in the films that they're going to erase, but Sigourney Weaver was in those. Jamie Lee Curtis was in films post Halloween 1, the original one. So you're saying that the actress is also on board with forgetting all of the work that she did? No. No.
Here's why I'm okay with it. 1, 3 had nothing to do with Michael Myers. 4, 5, and 6 kind of told its own story. Then they abandoned that and pretended they didn't exist for H2O and Resurrection. Then they just full on remade it. So the whole time they've been doing that. So it's just, I don't know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre did it. They've all done it, and so I don't really care.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, Michael Myers lurks here, and then he lurks here, then he kills somebody. Then he lurks here, and then he kills somebody. And then he lurks here, and then he almost kills Jamie Lee Curtis, but then she gets away. And then he lurks here, and then she fights him again, and then finally she kills him, and she wins. So there's your, you don't even need to waste your money. There you go.
Here's the real spoiler. Michael Myers is 60 years old.
Oh boy! So he's going to be even slower. Oh, this is going to be great.
Lurking.
All right, we didn't really discuss the order of the show. Do we just start with Ready Player One and then break it up throughout the show so that we can have WarGames later and Beetlejuice later? Yeah, Ready Player One.
All right, Ready Player One, based on the book by Ernest Cline and directed by Steven Spielberg from a script by Cline and Zach Penn. It stars Ty Sheridan as Wade Watts, who is lives in the future, 2025, in Columbus, Ohio, and there he basically is just barely getting by. He lives in this virtual world for the most part called the OASIS that he jacks into, not unlike the Matrix. There you can create your own character, be anything you want. His character, I can't remember what he called himself in the Parzival. And the basic premise is that he and his friends are seeking out these Easter eggs that have been placed into this virtual world by the late creator of the OASIS, played by Mark Rylance. Anybody who finds all 3 of these Easter eggs gets to own the OASIS. And, of course, naturally there's an evil corporation that wants to stop him and get the eggs themselves, and he's got a love interest who's basically there to be a love interest. And it's a good movie. It really is. It's like a roller coaster ride of a movie. It's more on that side of Spielberg's career that is like the lesser side of the Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones side of his career. This I'm trying to figure out, like, the Jurassic Park sequel would be right where this is, or in that range of Spielberg's career. This is far from Spielberg at his best, because I felt like the movie just lacked humor. It's very juvenile, which the novel I'm told was quite juvenile in and of itself. This is quite juvenile in terms of its humor, in terms of its rushed characterization. The romance is entirely botched. I mean, they just slam it all together. I love you. We've known each other an hour. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, I do like this movie, but it didn't blow my mind. I'm not going to remember it in a week, and it's good.
This is very interesting. I was anxiously awaiting your thoughts on this because, like I viewed Roger Ebert, I don't want to make your head too big, but in all honesty, your baseline on something is kind of like, ooh, I was right, or ooh, I was wrong, or I'm glad that I aligned in certain ways, because it makes it easier. When I disagree pretty strongly, then it's like, shit, I have to explain myself. I have to actually provide facts as to why I liked it, other than just having a nice circle jerk. Okay, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was just short of great, and these are the reasons why. Spielberg, I've had a bit of a problem with him as a filmmaker lately, not necessarily harnessing what he's best at and just being maybe a little boring, sinking into a sense of filmmaking that is a given. It's almost like, yep, of course this is good. All right, Bridge of Spies. It's fine. It's a film. I don't care about Bridge of Spies.
Post.
The Post. I don't care about The Post, even though I think it's saying something important. I don't care about the BFG. Yeah, it lacked everything that he was good at as a filmmaker. This one, however, what he taps into, and what I was most impressed with, is the spirit behind gamers and gaming that is, on its surface, if you look at it as an adult, juvenile. Okay, people living in virtual worlds because of various reasons, but primarily because that's better than their regular world, and sitting in basements. And we have this whole idea of what gaming is because of what people have done and what we've seen. However, the botched romance that you're talking about, what I see it is from a different point of view. He's known of Artemis for a long time. He's had this virtual thought of her, a virtual romance that he's had all by himself for a long time already when he meets her. So he's had the relationship before he
That
even
kind of
meets
makes
her.
it creepy, though.
Of course it
honestly.
does.
That doesn't make it a love story. That makes it just much creepier.
It's creepy from the audience, but for him, you don't. When you're acting creepy, you don't know you're being creepy.
and they're all playing. The good thing about virtual reality and the good thing about online things is that everyone's on an equal playing surface. It's like everyone's on roids, right? Everyone's juvenile. Everyone can hide behind something. Everyone has got a relationship with something that excites them while they're online. Spielberg is able to somehow, at the age that he's at, and I don't want to be ageist, but it's important to recognize that he noticed what was important about this script and put it into his film. That makes me very impressed with his filmmaking. There's all the nostalgia and literal and figurative Easter eggs in this film, but I was less interested in that, surprisingly, as a dude that just eats this stuff up like cereal, okay? I was more impressed by his ability as a filmmaker to try and capture what the sense of a gamer is. That's what this book is about. The man that wrote the book, co-wrote the screenplay, purposely left out, as I understand, a very large chunk of the book to get it right for a film and to capture the spirit, which apparently it does. I am 100% on board with this movie as a result. It has a few slightly adult moments. Once, having not read the book, there's a point the movie goes into that I said, what movie are they in right now? They're in the what? Boy, I've got a hold of your shoulder. I want you to know that this could be scary, very scary, and we might be in trouble here. It's going to be okay. If you're scared, we can leave. You can just cover your eyes. And this movie has some daring moments like that. This movie stole my Alien moment. Oh, no. I mean, I was reserving that for when the boy was 13, you know? I wanted that cool, like, bonding, hey, you've seen something super gross now. I've been waiting to show this to you since you were a little baby. I mean, I'm very impressed with the film on so many levels. It's not great, though. Like, I would put it in the 10 to 15 range of all of the Spielberg rankings, because I read that list that you had invested time in this week. And
did you write that list?
No.
I was going to say.
Clint Worthington, Consequence of Sound, wrote that.
Yes, and I read the whole thing, and he's got a lot of good points. I just disagree with a couple of them. The thing I would say is I'd put it in that 10 to 15 range, where it's not E.T., it's not Raiders for me, it's not Close Encounters. But I will watch this any day over The Lost World. Like, that is a piece of garbage compared to this. That is lazy filmmaking. That is, and even the title itself, The Lost World: Jurassic Park. Like, come on, man. I mean, you're just money grabbing right there. This is a genuine film where he's trying to do something. I'm wholly impressed. Even the visual effects are something else when they're in the OASIS, because I expected it to be Uncanny Valley crap, like Zemeckis' The Polar Express, a piece of garbage. And that was so unnerving that it took me out of the film. And this, they do something that makes all of this look like we're in it. I didn't even need to see this in 3D for that to be believable, and that's cool. Of course, I have a little neck cramp that I'm still dealing with as a result of seeing the film, but go ahead.
Not to do, this is not about you, but I didn't care for the fan servicey stuff. That stuff didn't do anything for me. I did, and that's just mostly a lot of that's because I don't care about the gaming and all that stuff. But at the same time, I also think he was just kind of jerking those people off a little bit and paying tribute to and telling gamers how great they are. Doesn't appeal to me, but I thought it succeeded more as a movie than anything else, and in terms of the way he structured the adventure and the way he built those characters. Aside from the character of Artemis, which I felt was Olivia Cooke did everything she could to make that character work. I don't think it does. I think it's just the way it was built was just to be of service to him, and that to me isn't a great isn't a particularly great character. I also didn't think that Ben Mendelsohn was that great as the villain. I thought he was just basically just doing the very typical corporate villain thing that we've seen 1,000 different times, and so that didn't do anything for me. But structured as an adventure, and with that core of characters when they're on their quest, I thought that part at least that felt like a roller coaster that was really moving very well, and that's why I liked the movie. And so I do like this movie. I just don't. I'm far from loving it.
Sure. He said Ben Mendelsohn. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
He knows his name now.
I've always known his name. I'm saying most people still don't know who he is.
It's a podcast callback as well.
Yeah. I remember that. I read the book just because I figured one of us could bring that perspective to the podcast. And I'm really impressed with Ernest Cline rewriting it and capturing I will say Sean's right about Artemis. Artemis makes way more sense in the book. The love story, everything you said is true in the book. They do rush it here. You kind of have to know that he's known who she is forever, and they kind of mention it, but they don't really spend time with it. So it works better in the book than it does in the movie. Otherwise, what he does a good job of cutting stuff out, cutting it down, and still maintaining the theme and the tone and everything from the book, which I thought was impressive. I'm not a huge fan of either one. I don't like or dislike. This is a movie, you know the ending when you go in. Just like, the Indiana Jones movie, just like any other adventure movie. You know the good guy's going to win. You know the bad guy's the stereotypical bad guy. But at the same time, Spielberg does a great job of Jurassic Park's a perfect example too. You know how it's going to end, but he does a good job of bringing it along for the ride, and it's a fun ride. I will say at the end of the movie, though, everybody just kind of was like, "Oh," and they kind of like tauntingly clapped at the end of the movie. It was just like, it was kind of amazing.
Like a Jeb Bush, please clap.
They were laughing at themselves. It was like almost like being at what are those called, the riff tracks, or whatever, towards like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Ooh.
And it's in that movie. This movie calls for riffing at the end of this movie.
That ending for sure. Yeah, that ending was kind of weak.
That is one thing I can agree with both of you on. That ending was a little too quick, a little too trope, and didn't necessarily reflect what I thought the rest of the movie was trying to do.
Did you recognize the voice right away? I recognized the voice instantly.
You mean Mark Rylance?
No, the last character reveal.
Oh, Simon Pegg?
Recognized the voice immediately. There was no surprise there for me at all.
Well, Wade Watts is too busy staring at pixelized Artemis, to worry about anything else, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. It's part of it was, being like, well, that's not how I did suffer from that while watching it and wanting to see what I read on the screen, but it definitely captures, it was weird. Like WarGames isn't even mentioned, I don't think. Maybe there's a poster at some point. 2112 by Rush, they show a picture of the album, but that is a huge part of the book too.
I would have loved to have heard at least part of that album.
I gotta say, maybe my favorite moment in the movie is the very first thing that you hear is "Jump" by Van Halen on the IMAX speakers is fucking awesome.
The one thing about the music in this movie, I agree. I like the songs. Okay, they picked the right songs, but it's like watching your grandpa try and interpret 80s music. This one was popular. Let me put that one in there. And I don't think Steven Spielberg actually gives a shit about this music.
If you really want to jerk me off, play Panama or something like that. Let's not play Jump. Not that there's anything wrong with Jump, but put 2112 in it at some point, or part of it.
The Shining sequence that was added, right? That's what's in the movie.
Yes.
What was in the book?
Well, it's so different because they're not like you see the Joust poster from the video game a lot. That was the first quest. You have to beat so and so at Joust, and then basically you would get a key, and then you would get an egg. Every time you got a key, and then you had to get all three. And you had to get all three in the book as well, not just the last one. And so there wasn't really, instead of The Shining, after you beat Joust, then you had to reenact WarGames, line for line. That was what you had to do.
Wow.
And then, I don't remember what the second one was, but it might have been Monty Python's Holy Grail. That was one of them. And then And then you had to learn how to play guitar to Rush's 2112. I mean, but it was like Guitar Hero, so your avatar knew how to do it. So whether you knew how to or not, you just said,
Sure.
go.
Maybe this is just overthinking it too much, but why would this modern culture be so invested in 80s culture? Where are the elements of 2025's own culture?
I can give you the true answer,
Please.
but not what you're asking for. The true answer is, if you do that, then anything that happened afterwards, you don't have to talk about because everybody's obsessed with the 80s. So anything that happens after we wrote this book doesn't really matter because they're obsessed with the 80s. That's what the answer is.
My thought on that was that the creator, the thing that everyone's going after, this $1 trillion enterprise, is obsessed with the 80s. So that's all anyone thinks about is, what was this guy's life about? What did he like? We're basically just researching every little thing we can find to find the $1 trillion answer, and it involves 80s culture. So yeah, everyone's obsessed with it because that's what the whole culture is finding that stuff. That's a lame answer, I suppose, but it made some sense to me.
I suppose the only... Like, there's a part of me that thinks this could have been like Citizen K meets Social Network, because both those things are there, and they're kind of even referenced at times. And it's like, part of me is like, oh, you could have kind of gone for it, I guess. I mean, you probably would have failed miserably. This is definitely the safer choice. But I would have been curious.
This is safe all around, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Nolan would have tried your method.
Nolan would have.
He would have tried really hard to go for what you're saying.
Now,
a larger
Fincher
social context
would have done it, but he's in the social network, so he doesn't really got to do it again. But I don't know. It's a fun movie. You know everything going in. You're gonna like. It's an easy watch.
Admittedly, I know that this isn't great, and I think hopefully I've stated that I'm not saying that's in the pantheon of other films that I do think are great from Spielberg, but this has a great rewatchability factor for me. I'm excited to see it again. I think I may go to the theater again just to see it because I want to catch some other things. Not that any Easter egg that was in the film, figurative Easter egg, it is not something that I'm going to be super excited about per se. My son missed Freddy, and I'm like, oh, Freddy was in the movie. Oh, I missed that. Oh, did you miss Jason? Who's Jason? I'm like, oh, the dude with the hockey mask. He was in it. And there's probably a ton of other things I don't even know about, like Gundam or whatever, when the guy turns into the robot ninja with the lightsaber flaming thing. My boy didn't know what that was. I'm like, well, let me explain it. You know what? Never mind. I'm not going to explain.
I was sitting next to somebody who, when they said the Gundam thing, she squealed so loudly. She was so happy.
I definitely want to watch this again, and because I do know I like it more. I like it. It kind of is great because of what it is. He made something so simple, insanely watchable and fun, which you don't have a whole lot anymore today, especially in the Spielberg. I mean, it does flow like an Indiana Jones movie, and it's that kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it's to me that's pretty impressive for what he did. I would like to watch it now, having read the book and having had the experience of being like, well, it would have been nice if they tried this and that. Now that happened, I can watch it without that, which would be nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's just it's forgettably good. So it's a good movie, and it's already in the past for me. I'm probably not going to go back and see it again.
Gosh, I'm wondering. I like if I should read the book now.
I think you'll love it.
Honestly, I'm wondering this because of all of these simple things, like. You can put them in a book because no one is going to hit you up on rights issues in a book.
Why is that?
That is so weird, right? I don't get it, but that's the case. And in the movie, I kept thinking to myself, oh, that's so cool that Warner Brothers, the sole distributor of the film, was able to use a Universal product, a Columbia Pictures product, a TriStar product, all these different things in their film. And to me, I love that idea of cross-studio pollination because all it's doing is free advertising for the other studios. Like, hey, do you remember Back to the Future and how awesome that was? Go buy Back to the Future. There's a lot of cross-pollination possibilities there. I always saw this film as like that would be like a dream I would have, right? Where you've got all these things going on in your dream where Mechagodzilla is taking on the Iron Giant. I would have a dream like that, you know? But, I couldn't have that dream because Warner Brothers owns Mechagodzilla, and, you know what I'm saying, right?
I will say in the book, Iron Giant's mentioned, but I don't believe they use Iron Giant the way they did. They do use big metal giant robots to fight, but I think they kind of pass over Iron Giant in the book.
Oh, sure.
If I'm not mistaken. But
I know we're kind of close to wrapping this up, but I did want to ask, because it's been sort of divisive in what I've been reading online about the Shining sequence and what your thoughts were on the Shining sequence, because I loved it. I thought it was a phenomenal sequence, and when he walked up to room 237, I kind of lost it. That was like my one geek moment in the whole movie.
I was so frightened for my child because what they actually did go farther than I thought they would. And then right by the elevator, I'm like, they're not actually going to do the River of Blood thing, are they? Nope, there it is. And then he goes up to room 237. I look at my boy. I'm like, is this that moment in life where I have to cover his eyes? And then there's the chick, and she's naked. I'm like, don't turn around. I think, and then they do the clever camera thing where they're covering everything up, and I look at him and I'm like, hey, if anything happens here, I just want you to know, because he's very afraid of zombies, and I'm like, oh, this is the chick that turns into a zombie, man. This is like terrible for me. I don't know how to control this situation. He worked it out really well in his head, and afterwards he said, it was a little creepy. He was totally fine. I'm like, oh great, we should watch The Shining then.
I heard something this week that The Shining's really a comedy. Watch it again. And they made some decent points. And I kind of want to take that test and see if it's...
one of the worst lines that Jack Torrance says in the book, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to beat your head in. I'm going to beat it right the F in. That is hilarious, although terrible. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of get that angle.
Did you like the sequence?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was fantastic. And it... Just the way... Yeah, that's kind of... Because they do it like 2 or 3 different times with different movies in the book, take a bigger movie than all the movies they use in the book, and then to do it the way they did it was pretty cool. And
I like that. I like that tribute more than I like the repeated mentions of Zemeckis. Like Zemeckis just isn't that high up for me.
The Zemeckis Cube was kind of cool because they played the music, and Alan Silvestri doing the score for this is, boy, it was a hell of a choice over taking him and asking him to do the score versus his usual partner in John Williams. I don't know if it annoyed you at all, the score, because we were just talking about John Williams and how everything was the same, and I couldn't fit current John Williams into this movie. It made a little more sense to have a slightly more synthesized, tremendous score.
Yeah, it seemed like its own thing.
Yeah.
Which is good. I guess the last thing I'll say is the book jerks you off a lot more than the movie does.
Where can I buy a copy?
Top 5.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
Top 5 references in Ready Player One, the book or the movie. I will start. I don't have Instagram up. I don't believe we got any. Or did we?
I think we did, and I'm getting a signal this time, so while you're reading, I'll look.
All right. Cousin Jeff completely changed after seeing the movie. Number 5, Nightmare on Elm Street. 4, Child's Play. That was pretty amazing. 3, Friday the 13th. 2, Iron Giant. 1, The Shining. Christina Cato. 1, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. 2, Back to the Future. 3, Star Wars. 4, Christine. 5, Akira. Jason from New Mexico. From looking at everyone else's list, 5, Howard the Duck. 4, Blade Runner. 3, Back to the Future. 2, the first rule is you're not supposed to talk about it. The second rule about it is you're not supposed to talk about it. And the third rule, and so on and so forth. Fight Club.
As it turns out, Steve's list is from last week. So
excellent. And I only did one for the book because at the time I hadn't seen the movie, so I did Blade Runner, The Evil Deads, Fight Club, Ghostbusters, and while I don't remember it in the book, Silence of the Lambs. Because it was on the list that I Googled.
I did the same as you. I went from the book list because that's what was on. That was what was online. Although now I should have put The Shining on there, maybe. But
right.
Let's see. I went with Star Wars number 1, Blade Runner number 2, Evil Dead number 3, Silence of the Lambs number 4, and Indiana Jones number 5.
Okay, and mine, I have Blade Runner on here because apparently it's in the book. I don't know of a reference to Blade Runner in the film that I can think of. So be it. They had an opportunity to, I suppose, considering it's a Warner Brothers property, but it must not have worked its way into the story.
Or maybe they're just bitter about how Blade Runner didn't make enough money worldwide.
That's a very viable thought.
They changed the script, took it out of the movie.
Take that out of there. We don't want to ever talk about Blade Runner again.
We'll see it in the Ready Player One deleted scenes. My number 5 is The Iron Giant, 4 The Shining, 3 Blade Runner, 2 Back to the Future, and 1 Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You concerned me, Sean, because I thought when you stated on Wednesday that Monty Python wasn't in the film, I was like, oh, well, this is a real bummer because I would have loved that. And then when I watched it, I'm like, wait a minute, it's the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Did he miss it, or did he not necessarily recognize it right away? And so I'm just glad that you were slightly unattentive at the moment.
That's like, for me, that's not one of the best references to that movie. It's one of the lower references for me.
It is definitely a high reference for me. The number shall not be 5. It shall be 3, not 4.
All right. Talk about this movie the whole podcast.
Yeah.
The Death of Stalin.
Yes, The Death of Stalin. Armando Iannucci, the creator of Veep, created this film. It has a number of stars to it, but the idea here is that Stalin's Russia, 1952, Stalin passes away. There's a bit of a power vacuum as to which ministry leader is going to take over and be the new man in charge, the new Secretary General. And the chaos surrounding this is completely hysterical and dark as hell because there is so much death. The first thing you see in this movie is them putting out the order to go pick up people to put them to death. That's the first thing you see. Stalin is putting a lot of people to death. There's also this concert that's going on, and the concert's happening, and Stalin calls and speaks to the producer of this concert that's happening on the radio and says he'd like a copy, and I want it in 1 hour. And they weren't recording, but they know if they don't get it, everybody who is in the concert will die if they don't get it. So they have to redo the entire concert, and that is so funny. But the funny moments are throughout this. They're very dark. Again, you have to have a certain kind of sense of humor for this. But there's several different players here. Steve Buscemi is Khrushchev. Of course, Khrushchev is one of the guys who almost immediately follows up Stalin. You have Jeffrey Tambor, who is the man who immediately followed up Stalin, and just a complete dork. And he's the first guy who has to move up and be in charge. You have several other characters here, all of them very funny, all of them very it's just hard to describe because I don't want to give anything away about this. If you know Russian history, I didn't know Russian history, but I went back and researched it after the movie because I was so fascinated by the way it played out.
Wikipedia?
Yeah, exactly. So if you look up who was in charge, like Stalin and then the order, you'll see each of these guys. It's on that list eventually, and figuring out how they got where they got and who they had to kill to get there, and the various chess pieces that they keep moving. There's a general in the movie. I forgot the actor's name now, but he's part of the whole. General Zhukov is part of the chess pieces that everybody keeps moving around to try and see if there can be the one who will be the next one in power. They're all trying to move Stalin's body is just this great bit of dark comedy. I can't say enough great things about this movie. I really loved it.
Fascinating.
Did you get to the theater for it?
No. No.
I tried really hard.
I didn't have the boy, but at the same time, I was more interested in trying to get through all of the 88 movies and WarGames and whatnot than get back
and we
to the
did
theater.
kind of find out last minute that it
True.
was coming.
Yeah, I have no idea how it even got here. I mean, nobody knew this. Nobody really knew about this movie. There wasn't much of any national profile about this movie. So how it got here even is kind of a mystery, but I'm glad it did.
Yeah. It even says on IMDb that it's a 2017 movie, so it could be one of those things. They're like, we have a window, let's throw it in there, and then next week it could be on demand. That being the case, I'd definitely like to check it out. I mean, speaking of Monty Python, I see Michael Palin in the cast
Yes, Michael
list,
Palin
so-
is among that list. Molotov, the man, of course, whose name would go on to be the Molotov cocktail. Oh, I got to give a special shout out. I should have got the actor's name, and I didn't. But the guy who plays Stalin's son in the movie is completely hysterical. He is so completely out of it. He's so completely unhinged and just yelling and screaming and drunk and just unbelievably funny. When it comes to his time to give his speech at his father's funeral, I could not stop laughing.
High praise. Cool.
And then God's Still Not Dead. Or what is it?
God's Not Dead 3, Light in the Darkness. The thing I can say about this movie is that it's less hateful than the first two, which is, I guess, a step forward. The idea here is that Pastor Dave, who's been in each of these films, he's now stepping forward. He is the lead in this film. His church, of course, has been in the center of controversy from the first two films, from the battle with Josh Whedon, who was the protagonist of the first film, who battled Kevin Sorbo over the life of whether or not God is dead. He caused a lot of controversy because he went to this church, and then the church is in the second film as well. So there's a lot of controversy around the church. The school wants to get the church off their grounds so they can build a student center. A drunk student one night throws a brick through the window and accidentally hits the gas line, which then blows up the church and kills one of the other pastors. And from there, it becomes a battle to see whether or not they can actually keep the church on the grounds. And it's a crisis of faith for Pastor Dave. And the most interesting part of this is that usually in these movies, and especially I went into this thinking this is going to be about Christians feeling like they're being attacked by people. And there is certainly that persecution aspect to it. But what this movie does that the other two didn't and makes it less hateful is that they bring in a character played by John Corbett, who is an atheist. He's Pastor Dave's brother, Pierce, and he's an atheist. And they let him be an atheist. Moreover, they let him make points that are fair points about the way Pastor Dave is acting. Because Pastor Dave he's sad and he's frustrated and he's trying to save his church and he's kind of being a dick to people. And his brother is able to make points about, hey, you're not, as much as you say you're a Christian, you're not acting like a Christian right now. And that's a really interesting point of view from this movie. It doesn't last very long. There's, of course, all that horrible misogyny that these movies are known for. And so I can't say this is a good movie. And certainly the direction is rather amateurish to on top of it. But at the very least, this is a far less hateful God's Not Dead and a far less hateful Pureflix movie. And so for that's just this minor thing that I can say that it's not nearly as terrible as the first two.
Okay.
High praise.
Well, not saying anything is the highest praise that I can give it because that keeps it completely neutral.
Well, I mean, I wonder if, can Ricky Gervais make, God's Not Dead 4? April Fools, he's actually dead. Because, I mean, they made, Hamlet 2, and then they've done other...
Yeah.
Not that I would watch it, because he kind of is over the top, but it just... The idea is funny for me.
It's the funnier idea that it would be an execution.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed
Classic.
WarGames, big part of Ready Player One, the book.
Not
in the movie. I didn't even see a poster of it.
Yeah, I didn't see any reference to this movie. 1983, directed by John Badham and starring Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy. Matthew Broderick is an early hacker. He's a kid who's looking to play games on his computer and somehow finds a way to hack into NORAD. He doesn't realize he's hacked into NORAD. He's looking for a toy company so he can play their latest video game. But he accidentally hacks into NORAD so he can play thermonuclear war and begins this scenario with this computer that is nicknamed Joshua, based off the son of its creator, the Dr. Falker. Joshua, he began this back and forth. They begin playing a game. Joshua then is calling him to play the game, and only he can get in there and kind of reason with this computer to try and stop it from ending the entire world. Dabney Coleman is one of the lead guys at NORAD trying to figure out how this kid broke his system. There's other characters there as well, generals and whatnot, and lots of dick waving over who's in charge and whatnot. That's fine. This is a good movie, though. This really is. It's a very easy watch. It's a breezy film. Matthew Broderick is a very believable kind of young gamer kid. I was into his vibe. He seems like he's very childlike because he's a teenager, and I thought he was so authentic. That's really what sold a lot of this movie for me, was just Matthew Broderick's authenticity. And like I said, John Badham's a pretty good director.
Authenticity is really the key word there, because this is something of an outrageous idea.
Yeah.
And the whole cast in the movie, the score, the director, they're all on board with making this ridiculous idea as serious as humanly possible until the very end, where something that people are afraid of in 1983 almost constantly, right? Thermonuclear war, becomes something that actually is happening on the screen, and you kind of wince with all of the characters wincing when all of these blast points start to be impacted by this game that's being played. I found myself intrigued by watching it as a 5-year-old, which is when I saw this movie for the first time, and I was trying to recall why I was connected to this at all, because I haven't seen it since then. And I never had a copy of it and whatnot. And of course, it's because the computer's name is my name. And that's why I remember it so well. Oh, yeah. And it was really the first time that I had seen my name personified in any kind of fiction, which was kind of cool at the time.
You thought that was cool? See, I hate when my name is personified in fiction. Like, well, what about Bob? I'm not going to want. If you bring it to the podcast, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't care if it's good or not. I am sick of every teacher I've ever had. What about Bob? Fuck you. You think you're the first one to ever say that?
Fair enough, but whenever anyone talks about the Joshua tree, I'm not flying off.
There you go.
The best association I have is Good Will Hunting, Robin Williams' character.
That's a solid point. WarGames, though, in all honesty, John Badham is a really serviceable carpenter, and he has an apparent obsession with making bigwigs and government people look like dicks. Short Circuit in 3 years later following this film, although not as good of a film. I recognize it for other things, including the off-kilter comedy and whatnot of Johnny Five, but in that film, everyone from the government is completely inept. They're constantly waving dicks, and it becomes like clear this is something that you should really look into without having to worry about waving your dicks. And in this particular movie, there's so much minutia of, no, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. I don't think you're right. I bet my boys would take care of it. And Barry Corbin, the actor that plays this general that's in charge of launch codes and whatnot, he plays the role very well. He's about as gregarious as you can get. I mean, if they'd called him Bear, I wouldn't have been surprised. He's that kind of dude. So everything is very believable with this film, and even to an extent, like a character like Matthew Broderick hacking into this, well, the film allows for that possibility because it's just a mistake. It's not him proving himself to be a super intelligent, like a hacker with superpowers that can magically get into things.
He was looking to play a game
Yes.
at a toy company and accidentally hacked NORAD.
And thus it actually kind of works.
I love that it made
When you say it out loud.
It's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? But then the connection to the maker of the computer and whatnot, and how he's kind of totally off of his rocker and doesn't mind losing lives, that's when I started to think to myself, oh yeah, the people that do this stuff for a living, at the beginning when he just can't turn the key because the system is malfunctioning, John Spencer from The West Wing is in that scene. He can't turn the key. And I'm thinking, you really have to have some balls to be in charge of this kind of thing. And it's happened a couple of times in our world. What would it be like psychologically to be all of these people? And then when you consider this guy's completely off his rocker and had the power to destroy the world, it makes you really wonder about how tied down we are, and considering we have the biggest idiot in the world in charge of our launch codes.
Right, but they're busy waving their dicks instead.
Yes, you're right. He's too busy being Barry Corbin.
C-SPAN should have like an hour just says waving dicks or something like that.
That's what the subtitle said.
So what'd you think, Bob?
In a lot of ways, it reminded me of kind of like what Ready Player One is. You know kind of how it's going to end. You know it's a safe movie. And when you accept that from the beginning, you just kind of go along for the ride. And there's something to that makes it fun. I don't know. And there's nothing wrong with it. And, when you say the premise out loud, yeah, you're going to laugh at it. But when you're watching it, it's not funny. You buy it. You go along for the ride. You accept it for what it is. And it does a good job of capturing you and taking you there.
I think part of what works is that you've got a really great Matthew Broderick performance. Ali Sheedy is good.
Always exercising.
And but I think that one of the keys is that it's a rare non-weasel performance by Dabney Coleman. I think that really helps. Usually he's such a weasel character, and here he's not cool. He's not cool, but he's really professional, and he's not. People aren't looking down on him constantly, and I think that's you kind of want to like Dabney Coleman in a lot of his stuff, but you're not allowed to. And this one, you're kind of allowed to like Dabney Coleman.
His mustache was very professional in this one. I agree.
Weird trajectory for John Badham, huh? I mean, he starts off with a movie that I don't necessarily want to say that Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night Fever is like a really great drama or anything, but certainly it's a much more serious and much more adult movie than what he goes on to make.
And in a lot of ways, it's a classic.
Yeah. But it's a very serious, kind of it's a violent, and yet it's a disco movie, so people associate it with that, and people don't realize just how filthy that movie is in many ways, and violent too, and very adult. And then his trajectory is then from there to like WarGames, and you mentioned Short Circuit. It's a strange trajectory for him. He goes from a very adult movie to kind of, I need to lighten up a lot.
It's like he's at the top of a staircase and just walking down. Getting worse and worse with every movie.
I love Short Circuit, but I understand your point. I've never seen Saturday Night Fever, so I can't.
Again,
speak
I'm
to that.
talking kind of from the public perception. I don't know much about Saturday Night Fever. I've seen it, but I don't really remember it.
I think we need a classic here
Someday.
I was hoping to get to that point where we said yes, let's do that at some point.
If Travolta would ever get out of video on demand hell.
You know what? This new movie is being directed by Fred Durst.
So we're never going to see that.
He must owe the IRS a lot of money.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Is Fred Durst a Scientologist? That might explain things.
He's hated like a Scientologist. You can definitely relate.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, that's WarGames.
Out of curiosity, just as an aside to WarGames, in thinking of John Badham and the character of Halliday in Ready Player One, we talked about how they started serious, and then at the end of the career, they're almost making like stuff that wants them to go back and relive the past because it's much more innocent. There's almost like an odd congruency of career trajectory there, where Halliday wants everyone to. He even says it in the movie. He's like, I just want to go back, because he's kind of childlike in nature. He doesn't really care about the outside world. And John Badham's making this very apparently dirty adult film in 1970 something that deals with disco and is very violent. I guess that's what we're saying. And then all of a sudden you've got WarGames, which is not so serious, and then Short Circuit not so serious, but it's very childlike, and it's like it mirrors that. You can cut this entire section if you don't think it's worthy, but I drew a conclusion in my head and figured it was worth mentioning.
Well, I mean, WarGames, while it's fun, I mean, you're talking nuclear war. I mean, it's not. It is there. It's just
solid point.
It's just kind of.
Right, but
it's like fun nuclear war.
But you don't necessarily feel those consequences while you're watching it because you already know how this is turning out.
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
1988.
Oh, it's kind of a fun week in a way. in many ways, because we usually don't get big films that everyone can remember. We kind of drudge through some things, and there are a couple of things to drudge through this week. I'll start off with Bright Lights, Big City, starring Michael J. Fox and Phoebe Cates and Kiefer Sutherland. I didn't watch this movie, but I remember the trailers from when I was young, and of course, if you'd watched Family Ties and Back to the Future, you're a big Michael J. Fox fan, and if you're a 9-year-old like me, or roughly a 9-year-old, and you say to your parents, "Ooh, look, Marty McFly's in the movie. Can I go see it?" And you aren't thinking about what the movie's going to be about. And it's probably a good thing, of course, that my parents at least had a little bit of discernment, because this is a movie about him falling into addiction and drugs and whatnot as he moves into the city. I still haven't seen it. I'm very interested in Michael J. Fox taking on a role that's a bit more serious like this, but somebody else tell me that they have seen it, so at least my missing it is worthwhile.
I have. It's pretty lame. And as much as I love Michael J. Fox, it's just he's not believable in this role. He still seems like a kid.
He's no Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. Like, you just don't buy that this guy has ever been on drugs at all.
Downey Jr. does cocaine right.
I mean, to me, I think if he was great in this, you would have seen this movie by now. Because
that's a solid point.
There would be a reputation about
Yeah.
the performance.
Yeah, kind of like what was in the movie he was in with Joan Jett that ended up being kind of good from last year or from '86.
Yeah, I know which one
you
you're
know which one I'm
talking
talking
about,
about. Anyways, also a smaller film called The Time of Destiny, William Hurt, Timothy Hutton. It's a war film, but it's like a modernized version of a story which inspired an opera from Italy. This made like a couple $1 million, and I wasn't interested in seeing it. Nobody has thoughts. Good. Let's move on. Okay, Stand and Deliver. So of all of the 80s schoolroom, we're going to insert somebody heroic into an inner city school type of film. Stand and Deliver is, in my opinion, the best of them. We'll come upon Lean on Me later this year with Morgan Freeman. If I'm not mistaken, that's an 88 movie. And that has its moments as well. Stand and Deliver stars Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips. He's a very introverted math teacher that wants to teach his students how to do some sort of math. All I know is it involves math, and I wasn't hearing any of that when I was younger because I still hate math and hated it then. But he really, and this is supposedly a true story as well, of course, and he reaches his students and teaches them to better their lives through math. And I think I saw this like 4 or 5 times between 1989 and 93 because it was one of those things that was on all the time. I remember the theme song playing through the end, and it's like, even then I was like, how do you get a rock song?
Gangster's Paradise? Oh.
No, like the chorus of the movie is all lover boyish, you know. It's strange like that, but it didn't stick with me ever to the point of saying I want to revisit this. I remember Morgan Freeman, for example, being a lot harsher as a principal going up against students that are doing bad things and Lean on Me. And we'll get to that, of course, but Stand and Deliver
performance
thoughts?
by Edward James Olmos. More forgettable performance from Lou Diamond Phillips, really, especially considering how great he was in La Bamba. This is a real step down for him, I thought. He's just not particularly engaging in this one, whereas, especially since he has to be so much in service to the Almost character, and you're kind of looking like you're too big a star to be in service to another character in that way. So that star dynamic is, I guess, maybe just in my head, but that's just kind of the way I was feeling about it. So I really didn't connect with the movie as much, but I do say that it is a great performance by Edward James Olmos, and especially since I've seen documentary footage of the real guy that he played, he captures him brilliantly.
If I remember correctly, that Lou Diamond Phillips gets shot in this movie.
I think that I'm not sure about, but
relying on faint memories.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, one that I was excited to revisit, only because my mind from 20 years ago, and my mom showed this to me, was, ooh, this is going to be really good. This is The Seventh Sign. And I think the reason she was excited to show it to me is because Michael Biehn was in it, and I'm a big Aliens Terminator fan. I'm like, ooh, Michael Biehn, Hicks is in it. Cool. As it turns out, It is a serviceable film. It's just not great. It's eminently watchable. So you've got this woman who's pregnant and she's worried about losing her baby for specific reasons. And clearly in her life, she's had some troubles. Her husband is a lawyer who, as a side story, is trying to keep a man with Down syndrome who's killed his parents in the name of God, keep him from the execution room in the gas chamber. And all of these things happening whilst a strange man played by Jürgen Prochnow shows up. The very bright-eyed Jürgen Prochnow, and you know that there's something important about him. He's either going to be the devil incarnate, or he's going to be... Who's the other guy, everyone? I'll just give you a guess as to who he might be. As a 19, 20-year-old, this kind of worked for me. I was on board with it. I think maybe more because I got to see Demi Moore naked. And that's not really... I'm being honest. Like, I was excited for that
really,
part.
if you want that, you can watch About Last Night. It's so much better.
Really?
Or everything else she's done.
Well, I haven't seen Striptease. I haven't seen, like...
You haven't seen Striptease? That's
No.
fantastic.
Make it a classic.
Don't lie to the man.
It is
Just
funny.
Flat out lie to the man.
Okay, it is really bad, but it's kind of funny. There's some good jokes in it.
So you can see how important the seventh sign is. We've gone off to a tangent about Striptease.
And Naked Demi Moore.
Yep. But in the end, it actually does have kind of an interesting message about, would you sacrifice yourself to refill the well of souls or the hall of souls? That's a curious question for an otherwise B movie.
If you believe in the Hall of Souls.
If you believe in the Hall of Souls, the guff. And I always have a thing for Jürgen Prochnow anyway. I don't know why. He looks the part of like a guy that I could believe is Jesus or also a serial killer. The big movie from this week, speaking of disturbed individuals, is Beetlejuice, which turns 30. And I saw this celebrated in a number of places this week, including Beetlejuice's official page. Rotten Tomatoes put out a thing about Beetlejuice being 30, and I saw this in the theater, saw it a ton on syndication, et cetera, over the years, and it had been at least 2 decades since I'd seen this as well. It was, in the theater, one of the weirdest experiences, of course, I had up to that point, and it really lives up to it again. It's still really, really weird. You've got sandworms and a demon that talks like a pervert, and he's got terrible lines coming out of his mouth, and Michael Keaton just going full Michael Keaton on this one. It's like his character from Night Shift on steroids. I enjoy Beetlejuice. However, did it live up to what my expectation was revisiting it? No. It's actually a little too brisk, like an hour and a half. There's not enough meat to it. It's not as funny as I remember it being before, and the special effects don't hold up quite as well either. So it's something of a missed experience. Bringing it to my son's attention for the first time last night, he was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He was creeped out by the Beetlejuice's snake scene, just like I was at his age. So there you have it.
Yeah, it's the claymation, right? They use a lot of the claymation effects. For
It seems like it, yeah.
And that tends not to hold up over a long period of time, especially when you're talking about what we're dealing with now in terms of modern special effects. This movie doesn't really hold up that well. It's not that it gets bad. It's just that it has that nostalgia factor that kind of clouds how you feel about it. Because I saw it like I was 12. I saw it in the theater and I loved it because I was a kid who, because I was a silly kid who thought all of it was really cool. And as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I can see what the 12-year-old Sean loved about this movie. The adult is like, yeah, whatever. I can go do other things now.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that there's a lot of people became big stars after this. I mean, Alec Baldwin's distracting to look at. Mm-hmm. Gina Davis is distracting. Winona Ryder he's kind of Winona Ryder, but I don't know. That doesn't. It's fine. I like the character. I mean, I guess the character Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton's kind of fun, I guess. I had to turn it off because it was scary. I couldn't tell if my son was pretending to be scared or if he just wanted to play that stupid Star Wars game. But I kept saying, just wait till Beetlejuice comes on. Just wait till Beetlejuice comes on. And then he finally comes on, and I think Josh was whining about it being PG, and then I'm waiting for it, and all of a sudden he goes, fine fucking model or something.
Yeah, exactly. That one took me by surprise.
I was like, I remember that line vividly after he said it because I was like, that was the cool thing of being 8 and seeing the movie.
Yep.
But then I had totally forgot about it.
And then he grabs his crotch
Honk.
right after.
And there's a horn honk. When
Yes.
he grabs it.
And then he goes to the whorehouse shortly thereafter. Well, okay.
So I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I guess it did take me by surprise that this wasn't PG-13. Like, this is a clear PG-13
I just assumed
film.
it was.
And seeing PG up there and on IMDb as well, I was like, wow. Wow.
PG was weird in the 80s. Do you remember that? Maybe you haven't seen it, but that Can't Stop the Music with from the it was that musical with the Village People. There's a lot of nudity in that movie for a PG movie.
You're allowed so many breasts.
Not just breasts. I'm telling you.
Well, it's the Village People.
Yeah, exactly. So like the PG was a weird. They had a weird standard in the 80s.
It's all censorship anyway.
You know that he's going to say that, of course, and it's totally probably right. I noticed that if you're going to coax a performance out of Winona Ryder, it needs to be Tim Burton as a director. The two performances that she's had in her entire career worth their weight in gold at all are Edward Scissorhands and this one. I don't even care for Edward Scissorhands that much, but she carries like most of the movie having to speak. You know, I know that people would disagree with The Age of Innocence, perhaps. Martin Scorsese,
I think
but
Heathers is a great movie.
Heathers is one of the worst pieces of garbage I have ever seen.
I love Heathers.
We should totally bring that to the show at some point. Mean Girls and Heathers is a double classic because that's where I was bitching about it. Was somebody told me that Mean Girls was like Heathers, and I'm like, well, then there's no way I'm going to watch it then because I hated it. That should be fun. That's a lot of fun.
Someday.
Yeah, someday.
What else? How many classics we picked out this week? Saturday Night Fever, Heathers, Mean Girls.
I'm going to be forced to watch Mean Girls at some point anyways, so, you know, whatever. I'll never pick it. You guys will have to.
Oh, we will. Don't worry.
Now that you know.
Yeah, if you follow us on Facebook, every now and then we'll get in long discussions, especially with Josh's fiance.
Can we block her from the page?
No, because she tends to side with us.
Of course.
Can you sleep on the couch when you get home?
The couch is very comfortable for her.
Oh, doubling down.
You got to keep up that tension, you know? That nice, like, both of us can sleep on the couch type of thing, you know? I'm not going to defer. Go down in flames, man.
The pull-out couch.
That's what she said. Just never. It's all downhill.
Because the show's practically over. Next week, we've got blockers. I keep wanting to call it cock blockers.
Because there's a giant chicken.
Yeah, and it's like if that's part of your logo, then that's the name of the movie.
I was at the local theater, and there was a special screening of Paul the Apostle, and somehow they'd forgotten that they'd left the giant cock blockers standing right outside the special screening of Paul the Apostle. So there's John Cena's smiling face, blockers, and a giant chicken.
What would be great if like that was part of the trailers before the movie. But then I don't know if we'll get Chappaquiddick or the Miracle Season, maybe, and A Quiet Place.
Miracle Season and Quiet Place, I think are definite for sure.
A Quiet Place is having a special screening at the Davenport Theater that I've received an invite to. I don't know if it's open to the public or not, but it was shared with me just on my way to the show, and I plan on trying to make it because the writers of this film are local dudes, like Iowa dudes, as I understand it, and that
Blue
sounds
Box Boys.
That sounds interesting to me, if nothing else. The fact that there's somebody from here that did something interesting with the film.
Although I have been watching John Krasinski in a lot of interviews claiming to have written it. So I don't know if he rewrote it or what happened there.
Well,
let's see what IMDb says.
If you go, that'll be interesting for the Q&A.
Shall I wear my everyone's a critic badge?
In fairness, he was asked,
Right.
"Well, you wrote this movie," and he just didn't deny it. So I don't know.
Ooh.
But a lot of times, you get the original script and then it gets rewritten. And yeah, there's a lot of credits on the writing staff, including John Krasinski. So he must have taken it and redid it himself. But that's cool.
Did you guys actually do anything on this movie?
What do you do here exactly?
When we wrote it, it was really loud. Are they going to be at the screening?
As I understand it, yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, bring your everyone's a critic badge.
Do we have badges?
We don't need no stinking badges.
I bring my business card.
Yeah, you can put your business card in a laminate or something.
We're an old style hat with a piece of paper sticking out of it. I'm the press.
Talk really fast.
Hey,
Hey there, kid. Tell me what you did on the picture.
this is good. I like our riffing here. That's fantastic.
We just watched His Girl Friday. So.
Yes, that's true.
Better than you guys talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Bob is not going to sanction our buffoonery.
Hey, that's censorship.
With that, our classic will be The Mist, the Frank Darabont, Stephen King film that Josh and I like a lot. Sean saw once. And then our classic is kind of fun. Top 5 quiet characters. Or I guess if you want to do movies, you can too, but people in movies who don't talk a lot.
Right. It doesn't have to be completely silent.
It doesn't have to be like Chaplin or whatever. It can be like, Dolph Lundgren in Universal Soldier.
Sure, or like Marlee Matlin in Children of a Lesser God, where she just doesn't talk, she signs. She won an Oscar for it. That could be on your list.
Or Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV.
Sure. Yep. We know that you and Jason are on it already.
Or Dolph Lundgren in Creed 2.
That's funny.
Just assuming.
The Artist, that piece of crap movie. If somehow you like that piece of shit, put that guy in there.
I'm telling you, this could be fun. You can pick real movies if you want. I mean, has Schwarzenegger ever talked?
The original Terminator, he doesn't talk much.
That's true. I'll be back.
Fuck
Fuck you, asshole. That's about it.
Even in Terminator 2, he talks more, but he doesn't talk a whole lot.
True.
Oh, the Iron Giant going down with the thumbs up in Ready Player One? That's great stuff, man. I was nudging the boy, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I feel I missed something on the Ready Player One thing without saying how great Lena Waithe was. Lena Waithe played H in the movie, and she's fantastic.
Of Master of None.
Check out also The Shy. Shit. Check out The Shy.
I will say the way all the characters that you find out who they actually are in the book, they're all revealed at the end. You don't meet Artemis until the very end of the movie. So that was the only thing I would say is better. But anyway, that's our show. Before we end the show, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon to get yourself a credit on the show and help us grow the podcast. We'll start with our key grip level in Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Josh and Christina.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effect level, Corey.
May the Force be with you.
Our associate producer, Jason from New Mexico.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars, Dave Severs and Uncle Jeff.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Like I said, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. And that'll help us grow the show. And then, go to iTunes, subscribe, rate and review the show. We'll read your review on the air. If you want to stick around after the credits to play Flick Chart, You can.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray. And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean, the three best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the three best friends.
Signs or Goldeneye?
Signs.
I agree. Quantum of Solace, The Hunt for Red October.
The Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or Mallrats?
Now, which Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
2014.
Mallrats. Even though I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's a Franco movie, too. No, that's Rise. Dawn is the Matt Reeves one, the second one in the trilogy. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
I haven't seen that one, I don't think, so I will just call it a draw. Or do the refresh. The Others, Nicole Kidman, or A Christmas Story?
Others.
The Others.
I agree. I'm not a big Christmas Story guy. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, or Natural Born Killers?
Shit.
This is my day. The day is mine, Trebek.
I'll go Natural Born Killers.
Oh. Don't let me down, man.
I can't go Natural Born Killers. I really think that movie's a piece of shit. As much as I don't care for Two Towers, it's certainly not as bad as Natural Born Killers.
I really do like The Two Towers. It's my least favorite of that trilogy. Natural Born Killers is a piece of garbage to me.
Absolutely, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Showgirls or 51st Dates?
Showgirls all the way.
51st Dates.
I'm going to go 51st Dates, believe it or not.
Showgirls is so much more fun. I mean, as terrible as it is, it's so much more fun.
It gets boring.
Oh, I didn't think so.
It's like watching Girls Gone Wild after 5 minutes. Like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to see any more boobs.
But what about the dialogue, though? The dialogue in Showgirls is outstanding. Man, everybody got AIDS and shit.
I mean, there's...
Must be weird having a job where guys aren't coming on you. Or guys don't come on you.
Wow, Joe Esterhazy really sucks. It's just mean-spirited, I guess.
That movie is just hysterically terrible. Far more fun for me than 51st Dates.
This is a Nicolas Cage versus Nicolas Cage one. Con Air or Lord of War?
Con Air.
Lord of War.
Again, this is another ironic appreciation because Con Air is terrible, but I love Con Air for being terrible.
Yeah. Lord of War is Andrew Niccol. Am I right about that one? Gattaca, Truman Show writing.
That one to me is just adequate. That's an adequate movie, whereas Con Air is gloriously terrible in the most fun way possible.
I haven't seen Lord of War, so again, I'll have to refresh.
Jared Leto has a really good performance in that one as Nicolas Cage's brother, if I'm not mistaken.
Cinderella, 1950, or Kindergarten Cop, 1990?
Cinderella.
Kindergarten Cop.
I mean, it's Kindergarten Cop. What's the right answer? Cinderella. Oh, this should be fun. 12 Years a Slave or Rocky Balboa?
12 Years a Slave.
I agree.
I mean, obviously Rocky Balboa, because Brad Pitt totally ruins the end of 12 Years a Slave. But otherwise, I understand. Edward Scissorhands or Animal House?
Animal House.
Edward Scissorhands. I really don't like Animal House.
I like Animal House. I like it more than I like Edward Scissorhands. Plus, I'm also punishing Tim Burton still for Alice in Wonderland. So
I'm gonna go Edward Scissorhands, but I do like Animal House. Monster House, 2006. I don't know if I know what that is. And Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
You can just refresh on that one. There's no point.
I think Monster House animated.
Yeah.
Right?
Saw 6 or Memento.
Memento.
Yes. Gone in 60 Seconds. Pinocchio, 1940.
Pinocchio.
Yeah. Galaxy Quest, 1999, or The Saint, 1997.
Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. 28 Days Later or Rain Man.
28 Days Later.
Rain Man.
Gotta go 28 Days Later. As much as I like Rain Man.
Really? Wow.
Better directed, I think.
Zombies on steroids over Rain Man?
It's not that
Rain Man's
silly.
really lame.
Cillian Murphy's junk over Rain Man?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Fair.
If there's a penis in the movie, I'm probably going to pick it.
Cue the Village People movie.
Why do you think I like Gone Girls? Speaking of Fincher, movie I need to see again, Zodiac versus Men in Black.
Zodiac.
I liked it a lot, but I remember being long and
I
really
love
hard.
Zodiac.
But I want to see it again. I just haven't had the 3.5 hours, whatever it is, to take through it. Men in Black 2 or Orange County?
That's tough. Men in Black 2 is so flawed, but Orange County is also quite flawed. I think Orange County is just slightly funnier for me. Like, I bought Orange County when it came out. I don't think it's a great movie, but Men in Black is bad enough that I'll slip Orange County ahead of it.
It's kind of a draw for me, I suppose. Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones' chemistry is slightly above Jack Black's comedy in that.
I like Jack Black. I'm kind of with Sean, but again, I don't think I'm upsetting you by.
No.
Orange County is like really forgotten. Like that is
yeah.
not a movie that's
like I was halfway expecting you to tell me to refresh. To be honest with you,
and yet I own it.
I did at one point. I think Alien Resurrection or Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
Death Proof. Wow, they actually broke out Grindhouse or Bruce Almighty.
Death Proof.
Yeah. 40-Year-Old Virgin or Transformers.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
This could be interesting. The Da Vinci Code or Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oof, that is rough. I got to go Robin Hood just because Da Vinci Code is just that bad. That stupid haircut on Tom Hanks.
Only thing redeemable about the Da Vinci Code book they left out of the movie because it's like too controversial or something. So screw that movie for all time. And it's a Ron Howard film, of course. This is the battle of the mediocre directors that are praised as better directors than they actually are. Howard versus Kevin Reynolds. I'll take Robin Hood, please.
Yeah, Kevin Costner's butt and Alan Rickman.
Robin of Locksley.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Wayne's World.
Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, okay. This is actually really tough. It's Wayne's World by like a hair.
It's Scott Pilgrim's, but I get why you would say Wayne's World. I Robin Hood 2010. Sideways.
Sideways.
Another movie we need to bring to the podcast.
Absolutely. And a bottle of wine.
Go on.
Space Jam. The Cell.
Space Jam.
The Cell.
Space Jam.
The Cell sucks so bad.
But Vincent D'Onofrio is so interesting. And the imagery is so interesting. Space Jam sucks so bad.
Bill Murray is never bad.
The Cell is just that director just jerking off all over the
Tarsum.
screen.
Yeah.
The director needs to know that you have to jerk the audience.
Gave him scenes of D'Onofrio naked, didn't he? I mean, tried.
Oh, in that case.
Gave him some S&M.
You stay right where you are.
Yeah, I said whenever there's nakedness, male nudity, I'm going. Batman Begins or Halloween 1978.
Let's see what Batman Begins is. That's the first Nolan.
Yeah,
that one definitely.
Batman Begins.
It's Halloween by a lot. Shrek the Third, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Shrek the Third.
Wow.
Hey, the last one you confused me too, so I don't know what to say.
I'll go Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, I don't like Batman Begins much. Halloween's a good movie. It's dated, but it's good. The Martian or Memento?
Memento.
kind of hard.
It's kind of a draw. The Martian because space. And Ridley Scott.
The Martian because of Nolan.
Wow. Okay, you guys need to watch Memento again. Okay? You guys got to watch Memento again so you can remember just how brilliant that is.
Nolan's other films are bothering Bob so much that he's misremembering other things.
The one I like a lot. Yes. But The Martian's a good movie.
The Martian is a good movie, but I mean, Memento, though, is like...
I told myself in my head, whatever Josh picks, I'm just going to go with on that one.
Like an apology pick?
On that one. Yeah, one for you, one for me kind of thing. Blazing Saddles or Clerks 2?
Oh, gosh, that's hard for me. Honestly, I really like Clerks 2. I really do. Blazing Saddles by a hair, but I love Clerks 2.
Clerks 2 by a mile.
I agree, and I think what it comes down to is it's more personal for me. And in hindsight, if I had to do Chasing Amy or Eternal Sunshine over again, I think I'd do Chasing Amy because it's more personal to me, even if Eternal's better, if that makes any sense.
Of course.
It's been bothering me all week, so I had to say. The Terminal, 2004, The Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch.
Terminal.
Blair Witch. See? I got my apology in ahead of time. I need one more good one to go out on. Going to hit refresh a handful of times till something makes me laugh or the internet stops working. Mulholland Drive, This is Spinal Tap. Doesn't really make me laugh, but
is that the one?
It's a hard one.
Mulholland Drive.
This is Spinal Tap. Well, it's honestly not fair because I haven't seen Mulholland Drive. But I think... regardless, I have enough David Lynch experience to say this is Spinal Tap because that was a really great podcast experience.
Yeah, I would be. I'll hit refresh, but I don't know what I would pick. So, actually, I'd probably go. This is Spinal Tap too. Come on, one more fun one. I don't want Almost Famous versus Spy Kids.
Boy, I really hate Spy Kids. All of them.
That's no good. Jeez, is it not even like Hancock, Good Night, Good Luck? That's not. Wayne's World versus 50 First Dates.
Is that what we're going with?
No.
Okay.
We're going to get there. I mean, Back to the Future versus Karate Kid would be okay, but we're all going to pick Back to the Future, right?
Right. I would pick the Back to the Future for sure.
It pains me to pick Back to the Future, but yes.
Man, these are not even close. All right. Lethal Weapon, Harry Potter, and the Goblet of Fire.
Oh, no!
Eat a dick, Josh. Lethal Weapon for me.
Lethal Weapon.
Oh, God damn it. Harry Potter.
That's my favorite Harry Potter movie and favorite Harry Potter book. But Lethal Weapon's in my top 50. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is not. So Lethal Weapon it is. I've already had to go through this argument in my head, so I'll trust my past self.
All right. No, unless you have opinions on Ice Age versus Raging Bull, we can call it a podcast.
Ice Age. I can't.